Hello, I'm Vic Johnson, and you're watching Goals to Go. This show is about learning how to set your goals, and then I'll give you the tools and techniques you need to achieve them. Today, I'm talking about how to create SMART goals. Now, you may have heard that before. It's a formula that we use. Now, when is a goal a goal? Good question, because you know, a lot of people that I deal with, they have a mistaken idea of what a goal is. I'll say, what's your goal for this year? They'll go, my goal is to have more money this year. My goal is to be thinner this year. My goal is to whatever it may be. Unfortunately, those don't meet the criteria for goals. They might be wishes, in some cases they might be dreams, in some cases, unfortunately, they're fantasies. But there's a specific formula for creating a goal. Now, we don't create the goal just to meet the formula. There's a reason for it. We'll get into on this show. That's what it's all about. But the first place we have to start with is what we're really choosing as a goal. And one of the best explanations I have ever heard of this is Bob Proctor talking about ABC goals. I was blown away the first time I heard this described. You see, people pick goals at different levels. And most people, the biggest portion of the people that choose goals, the masses, so to speak, although the masses themselves don't choose goals, the masses of those who do choose A-level goals. What are A-level goals? Well, those are things you're comfortable with. They're goals you've probably done before. I've got a goal to lose 5 pounds this month. I've got a goal to increase my income $2,000 this year. They're things you've done before. They're things you're comfortable with. But I'll be honest with you, they're probably not the type of goals that are going to get you where you'd really like to be. The second level of goals, fewer people choose these, but still a large percentage of people, and they're called B-level goals. Those are goals that you've never achieved them before, but they're not that far beyond what you've done before or that far beyond what you think you could do. You know, maybe it's my goal is to lose 15 pounds this month, and the most you've ever lost is 5 or 10, and 15's not a big stretch, you know, it's not something that's hard necessarily to accept. Or it might be to have a 10% increase in your income this year. Whatever it may be, it's beyond what you've done before, but it's not a large measure beyond that. It's something, again, that you're comfortable with. And then there's the C-level goals. And I'll just share with you, only a very small percentage of people choose C-level goals. Those are the goals that really, really take your breath away. Those are the goals, in fact, they're so big they frighten you. They're so big that there's a level of fear that comes about whenever you think of them. What are those? Those are the goals that you really, really, really want. That dream that you've had to do something you've never done before, beyond even anything you've ever attempted before. Perhaps for some people, that's to have their own business, and maybe they've worked for someone for 20 or 25 or 30 years, and now they have this dream to have, or maybe they've had for many years, a dream to have their own business, and it takes their breath away. You know, if there's not a little bit of fear that you feel whenever you choose your goal, it's probably not big enough. See, the C-level goals are the goals to begin with, the goals to choose, because they're the goals that will take us through the obstacles as they come along. Those are the goals that will reward us with what we really want. Those are the goals that really add so much to our lives because they drive us to become more. They stretch us in ways that we've never been stretched before. So as we start the process today in applying the SMART formula, we want to start first with C-level goals. We want to start with big dreams. We want to start with big goals. And then we're going to take and we're going to apply a formula, 5 steps, S-M-A-R-T, called the SMART formula to achieving those goals. When we come back, we're going to cover that SMART formula. It's something you don't want to miss, so stay tuned. Goals to Go is coming right back. Welcome back to Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. Today we're talking about an important part of the goal setting process, and that's creating SMART goals. That simply refers to a formula, the SMART formula that we apply to goal setting. And it's an acronym. The letters SMART stand for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time certain. If we can apply that formula to any particular dream that we have, potential goal that we have, and it meets that formula, then it becomes now a goal. Too many times we choose goals that lack one of those. They're not specific, or they don't have a time on them, or they're not in some way measurable or whatever. So we're going to cover what that process is today. Hopefully from our first segment today, you're now thinking in C-level goals. You're thinking along the lines of something bigger maybe than what you were when the show started. You're thinking maybe that thing that I've always wanted is a reality. The next thing we want to do is apply the formula, and the first step is to be specific. It's not enough to say I want to make more money. It's not enough to say I want to lose weight. None of those the definitions become goals until we begin to get specific about it. How much money do you want to make? How much weight do you want to lose? If I see a recurring theme among people who struggle with goal setting, it's because they haven't really gotten specific about what it is that you really want. You know, you should be able to pick up someone's goal statement. We'll, at the end of the program today, talk about writing and affirming goal statement. You should be able to pick up someone's goal statement and be able to know exactly what it is that person's going for. When you've done that, when you've described your goal that specific that another person knows exactly what it is, now you're on the right track to having a SMART goal. Because see, you know, it's like anything else. If you don't have a target, if you don't have anything to aim for, you're going to be all over the board. If you say, I want to make more money, how much is more money? You know, if I say, I want to make another $100,000 this year, that's very specific. Doesn't leave any room for doubt what my goal is. If I say, I want to weigh a fit and trim 185 pounds, it doesn't leave any idea at all that I'm not exact and specific about what it is that I really, really want. You know, your subconscious begins to work on whatever it is you turn over to it. You turn over to it a task, and it will begin to work on that task. It works 24 hours a day. When you're asleep, the only thing that is monitoring your body while you're asleep, is monitoring your breathing, your heart rate, and all the other bodily functions, is some part of you that never sleeps. It's your subconscious. And it's always working on things. And it's a great tool to work on our goals because we can turn things over to it. But if it doesn't have anything to work on from that's described specifically, then you're not going to get the kind of result that you're looking for. So as we begin to craft our goal, we want to be as specific as possible. As the more detail that our goal has to it, the more real that it becomes to us. The more that we can describe it in every way, whether it's has to do with finances, whether it has to do with our spiritual life, whether it has to do with our family, relationship, whatever type of goal it is. The more specific and the more in-depth and the more detail that you can bring to it, the more life that you bring to it. Stop and think about it. If you started off with a drawing, for instance, and all you drew was the outline of a person, you'd know that it was a person, but you'd have no idea what gender it was, you'd have no idea what age, you know, you'd have no idea what race, you wouldn't know anything about the person. There'd be no life to it. There'd be no personality to it. As you begin to fill in the picture, as you begin to draw in the eyes, as you begin to draw in the features, as you begin to color that picture, then you would know without a doubt how old the person was, whether the person was happy or whether they were sad. There would be some specificity to the picture. When you can get that clear about your goals, you hear the word clarity used by some people. That's what clarity is, being specific. When you can get clarity about your goals, you have a whole lot greater chance of achieving them. You know exactly what it is you're going for, and you know exactly what it's going to take to get there later as we put together the rest of the SMART formula. So stay tuned. We've got more coming. The SMART formula is up next on Goals to Go. I've been talking about creating SMART goals. We went into detail on the first step, being specific. Now we want to go to the second step, the letter M in the word SMART, measurable. Simply put, if it's not measurable, it's not a goal. Might be a great dream, but it's not a goal. Now, if you stop and ask yourself what it would be like, or stop and think about what it would be like if you went into a sports arena or a sports field or something and you saw two or more teams competing against one another and you looked around all over the arena or the field and you couldn't find a scoreboard. The whole contest went on. At some point in time it ended and there was never a scoreboard. Who would ever know the winner or the loser? It would not be measurable. The same goes for a goal. How are you going to know whether you reach the goal if it's not measurable? You know, a lot of people, I will ask them what their goal is and they'll go, to make more money this year or to lose some weight. You know, if you ask them how much money, they kind of get a quizzical look in their eye. Well, I haven't really thought about it. Well, many people don't achieve their goals because they don't really have a goal, because again, it's not measurable. If you have a goal to earn more money, it needs to be measurable. What are the dollar amounts? Or do you have a specific measurable amount that you want to put in the bank or invest? If you want to lose weight, or put from a positive standpoint, if you have an ideal body weight, I want to be a fit and healthy, or will be a fit and healthy 185 pounds. That's measurable. That's something that we can say as we go along. Are we making progress? It gives us something to chart our progress against, and in the end, it gives us something to evaluate. Did we meet it? Did we exceed it? Did we come up short or just short of it? Thirdly, is attainable, the letter A. So is the goal attainable? Now I want to caution you about the next two, because there can be a lot of limiting thoughts go on if you apply the next two in the wrong way, and that's the words attainable and realistic. Firstly, the word attainable. I don't want you to think of the goal from attainable from a belief standpoint. You know, if you see the goal as impossible and you go, well, it's not a SMART goal, it doesn't meet the formula. No, don't reject it because of that. You know, if I stop and think of the inventions of Benjamin Franklin, if I stop and think about the success of Bill Gates and Microsoft, or any other great success story, in the beginning, there could have been a great question about whether any of that was attainable. You know, the Wright brothers, could they have found a way to fly? Probably wouldn't have met the description of attainable in the beginning. Don't measure it against the belief. Measure it against the commitment. Is it attainable from what you're willing to commit to it? For instance, if you had a goal to run in a marathon, that's an attainable goal by just about anyone. If they went out in enough days, they trained, just about anyone. Regardless of where you're at today, there have been people that weighed 300 and 400 pounds that have over time built up to the point where they could run in a marathon. That's been done before, and so it's certainly attainable by most anyone. But now if you had a bigger goal to run in the Boston Marathon, the most elite, that's a different goal. That's a big goal. Some people might see that as impossible from where they're at. Well, it's not. Don't say it's not attainable, so I won't choose it. That's a belief decision, or that's a belief judgment. Look at it from the standpoint of commitment. Am I willing to commit what it takes to run in the Boston Marathon? So when you judge your goal from an attainable standpoint, measure the commitment that you have, not the belief that you have about it. And in like mind is the word realistic, applying the word realistic against your goal. You have to be very, very careful about doing that, or you'll miss some great dreams and you'll miss some great goals. When I say, is it realistic? I mean from a standpoint of, does it violate certain physical laws? For instance, if I wanted to be a horse jockey, that were a goal of mine, it's probably not very realistic. As big as I am, there's probably not a horse big enough to carry me. So it probably would not be very realistic for me to have a goal as a horse jockey. Now, I could have a goal to be an owner or a trainer, but then again, I might be, missing a great dream if I apply it too strictly. I remember a little 5'2" fella by the name of Spud Webb. who actually became a pretty successful National Basketball Association player. In fact, little 5'2" Spud Webb out-jumped and out-hustled people that were 6'10", 7 foot tall, and actually won the dunking contest one year in the NBA. Now, some people would have said to Spud, it's not realistic, Spud, at 5'2", to have a goal to play in the NBA. So you got to be careful about how you apply the words attainable and realistic in the formula. Yes, you need to apply them in order to qualify them, but being realistic, it is not realistic to make $100,000 this month if the most you've ever made in your life is $2,500. That's not realistic. It is realistic to make $100,000 a month if the most you've ever made is $2,000. It is realistic to do that at some point in the near future or at some point in the future if you apply certain principles. But starting this month from zero, that's not realistic. It would violate some principles. So be careful as you apply those, but definitely you want to apply that whole process, SMART, to determine whether you've got a SMART goal. Coming up in our next segment, the final step in creating SMART goals. Stick around, we'll be back. Welcome back to Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. We're talking about creating SMART goals. We've talked about how the goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic. Now let's talk about the last step, time. In order to be a goal, it's got to be time certain. Let me go back to the analogy that I used about the sports contest. What if you walked into the arena, there's two teams playing and there's no time clock? They just keep playing. When are they going to know that it's over? You know, and it's a silly analogy perhaps, but you know, we choose goals sometimes. We don't put a date on them. We say, I want to lose 50 pounds. Great. When do you want to lose 50 pounds by? You know, I want to earn $100,000. When do you want to earn $100,000 by? Until you put a date on it, until it becomes time certain, it's not a goal. In fact, I've heard it said that a dream is nothing more than a goal without a date on it. And there's some truth to that. So you can have a great big dream, but if you want a goal and it's a goal that you're likely to accomplish, then it's got to be time certain. Now, let's face one of the realities that we all face, and that is we get to a certain date and we didn't achieve the goal, and how frustrating and discouraging that can be. And it happens to anyone who's ever chased a goal. Now, unfortunately for most people, it serves as a negative function. Many people will never ever attempt the goal again. In fact, some people will just give up on goal setting and goal achieving altogether. But actually, what we have to learn about that situation is it's telling us something, and it's something we need to understand. Bob Proctor teaches about the universal law of gender. And what the universal law of gender says, everything has a gestation period. My friends in Nebraska and the Midwest and Iowa, they know that a seed of corn is about 90 days from the time you plant it until you can harvest corn. That's the gestation period of corn. Human beings have a gestation period, 9 months from conception to birth. Ideas, dreams, and goals have gestation periods too. There is a certain period it takes from the beginning of that idea till it's formulated and structured until the goal is achieved. Many times we don't know what that gestation period is. Now, sometimes we can look at other people's experiences and we can see what they've done in a certain period of time, and we can reason that if we apply the same thing toward it that they've applied to it, that we'll get the same result. And many times we do, but sometimes we don't. All it means when we don't achieve a goal by the date that we had on it is one of two things. Either we didn't have the right activities set up for the goal, and that happens a lot. We had the right goal, we just didn't choose the right activities, or we don't have the right date on it. Many, many goals in my life that I've gone for that I didn't achieve on the first time, second time, even third time was simply because I didn't have the right date on it. So what do? You just change the date. You just changed the date. Talking to a great friend of mine today, and she was sharing with me that she had a dream to have a book out by the end of November. She realizes that's not going to happen. So what did she do? She just changed the date. The way that I finally got my first book published was just changing the date. I had the goal many years. Many years I was frustrated and discouraged. I could have given up and I could have quit on the goal altogether, but instead I just changed the date until the year when the law of gender was at work and the gestation period was right, and it all came together and I achieved the goal. So now that I've got my SMART formula put together, or I've put it against my goal and I've got the goal that I want, now I needed to put it in a positive statement that I can use to remind me of what my goal is, something that I can carry around. I'm going to begin it as Bob Proctor taught me to begin it, with the words, I am so happy and grateful now that. And I don't have a lot of time in this show to go in and tell you why being grateful is important, but just trust me. Begin your goal statement with the words, I am so happy and grateful now, and you will be grateful for that. And then state your goal in a positive present tense. State it as if you have achieved it. I am so happy and grateful now that I weigh a healthy 185 pounds. And then I'm going to have a date on it on December 31st, 2008, 10, 12, whatever your year may be. So now that you've got the SMART formula, now that you've got your goals, it's time to go. Thanks for watching. Vic Johnson.